I'm Mark Bell, and you're catching me on my 10-minute walk, and I'm going to talk to you about the 5-day fast that I just went through. "5 days of fasting. What are you, crazy, Smelly?" I guess so. I guess I'm getting to that point in my life. But I did a 5-day fasting mimicking diet. It was created by a guy named Walter Longo. You might want to look him up. You might want to check into some of his stuff. But it's got tremendous research. And what enticed me to do it was the fact that, number one, he's got a lot of research done on mice. And the research on the mice was pretty damn cool. But even more importantly, he did research on humans. And the research that he got on humans off of his fasting mimicking diet was really profound. The reason for me to look into this in the first place was brought to my attention by Dr. Gould, who is a dentist. Well, what would a dentist have to do with fasting? What would a dentist have to do with helping out Mark Smelly Bell? Well, Dr. Gould is on a mission to help solve the problem of sleep apnea. And contrary to popular belief, a solution to sleep apnea is not a sleep apnea machine, it's not a CPAP, and it's not necessarily a mouth guard or mouthpiece. It's to try to figure out what's the root cause of sleep apnea. Now, everybody thinks that sleep apnea is rooted in being in obesity. Well, I used to be fat, and maybe I could lose a couple lbs, but I wouldn't necessarily think of myself as obese, right? And maybe I weigh about 230 pounds, so I don't know, maybe if I was 215, maybe the sleep apnea would go away, I don't know. But I used to be 330, nowadays I'm 230. So I already lost 100 pounds. And there's been no change in my sleep really, except for more recently. So Dr. Gould had this theory that maybe, potentially, through fasting, maybe I can reset my circadian rhythm. Maybe by going through the process of autophagy, maybe I can kill off some old and damaged cells. Maybe I could produce some stem cells as well to help heal the damaged brain of not being able to sleep for many, many years. I haven't been able to sleep well for a decade. Now, I am laying down. I am getting to bed at a certain hour. I am, resting for 8 hours or so, or 7 hours, but I'm not getting good quality sleep. My deep sleep is disrupted. My REM sleep is disrupted. And I know that because I've tracked it before with this device, Apple device, an Oura Ring, and many other things I've utilized as well. I have also done a lot of different interventions with my sleep. None of them have changed anything. I've used magnesium, I've used theanine, I've used GABA, I've used a lot of products, and they may assist a tiny bit, a little smidge poo here and there, but nothing major. Zinc, ZMA, and I just didn't want to get wrapped up in utilizing sleeping pills or artificial means because I thought that would have me go down a different rabbit hole that I just wasn't comfortable with. I never really got into messing with melatonin because I know that melatonin is a natural thing that your body can produce. So I was like, how do I produce more melatonin? Well, there's natural ways that you can do that. And that's been some of this intervention as well. And I know that I'm supposed to be talking about fasting, but I'm trying to explain to you all the reasons why I'm fasting. So along with fasting, what has also been helping my sleep has been waking up in the morning and watching the sunrise. That is supposed to help your body produce more melatonin, get your body set for the day, and help to reset your circadian rhythm for that particular day. I also wear blue blocker glasses at night, those weird red ones, to block out some of the natural sunlight, or not the unnatural light that's on in my house. When I go to bed, I wear an eye mask, I wear mouth tape, and I wear a nose tape. The nose tape helps me to breathe through my nasal passages better. The mouth tape helps keep my mouth shut. Eye mask helps keep the room 100% dark, no light at all. And I noticed a massive difference between that and just having a little bit of light from the outside, or sometimes there's a TV on in the other room. Huge difference. Don't have an eye mask, you should get one. Back to fasting. 5-day fasting mimicking diet. Holy shit, I made it through. Today I had an opportunity to eat and it was great. First thing in the morning I had bone broth with an egg in it. Heat up the bone broth, throw the egg in there, it cooks the egg, threw in a little bit of butter, threw in a little bit of pepper, a little bit of extra salt, blended that thing up, and it was amazing. Drank it, that felt so good to have that. And then I went into my sauna for a little while. I got a chance to go into my hot tub for a little while. Today was a chill day, I didn't have a lot of work. So I had meal number one, and meal number one was a Japanese sweet potato, which is one of my favorite things in the whole wide world, along with an omelet. And the omelet was really good. Mainly egg whites, 1 full egg in there, and a little bit of cheese. And that first meal, you know, one of the best meals of my whole life because of all the fasting I was doing. Fasting mimicking diet is called mimicking for a reason. So you do get to eat. I was allowed to eat pickles. I was allowed to eat olives. And there's a few other things on the diet. You can have some greens and stuff like that, but I didn't really mess with too much of that. I didn't even really mess with pickles or olives that much until day 3 and 4 came around. Just kind of felt like I could use a little boost in energy and salt, really, and fat from the olives. But what I was using primarily is bulletproof coffee. Coffee, butter, and MCT oil. I did that about twice a day. On day 1 and 2, I think I did about 3 of them a day, and that seemed to work really well. The main thing with the fasting mimicking diet, you have 1,100 calories on day 1. Doesn't matter a body size, doesn't matter male, female, that's what he recommends. I'm sure that you can scale it to your body weight if you wanted to, but I've followed the parameters pretty good. 1,100 calories day 1, and all the succeeding days, all the days afterwards, 800 calories on day 2, day 3, day 4, and day 5. So day 1 and 2, I didn't really feel like I needed much food, but my body weight dipped down really fast. I went from 238 down to about 226 really, really quickly. And then so I was like, all right, well, it's supposed to be fasting mimicking and you're actually supposed to be eating a little bit. So that's when I brought in the pickles and the olives. Oddly enough, through the process of just eating that, I kept my weight on. And the lowest I dipped down to was like 218 or 219. That was dehydrated after some exercise. But I've been able to keep my weight for the most part. This morning, I think I weighed in around 226. So I went from 238 down to 226. I didn't do this for weight loss. I didn't do it to get lean. I didn't do it to get shredded. I did it for the effects of autophagy, killing off old cells, bringing in new ones. What day was the hardest of this fasting mimicking diet? You know, I woke up this morning and I was just like, I was pretty proud of myself. I got to be honest. I was like, I can't really believe I made it. I mean, I know that I can make it. I know that I have a good, strong mindset. But I just did it out of nowhere. I was like contemplating it. I heard stuff from Walter Longo. And I was like, yeah, whatever. But when it started to line up with the things that Dr. Gould was telling me, I was like, I got to try this. Because Dr. Gould believes that through the process of autophagy and some of these stem cells, that we can reverse some of the damage that some sleep apnea has done and basically reset my sleep and give me access to some things that I haven't had before. It's my understanding that when you go day in and day out without good quality sleep, that you build up, I want to say it's adenosine, but I could be messing that up. You build up some sort of chemical / hormone in your body, and it just makes you feel fatigued all the time. And it's not good to have that in your system. So through the process of some of this stuff that I've done, just by getting one good night of sleep, you could see how it can start to unwind that process of you having too much of that hormone, too much of that adenosine in your body. And now your body's going to be able to relax a little bit more and sleep better. Plus, one good night of sleep really changed everything for me, because I was getting to the point where I started being a little stressed about sleep itself. I'm like, oh no, here we go again, another restless night. And the anxiety around sleep that a lot of people have, it's really crushing them. In a lot of my research in looking into these things, like I look into these things maybe a lot more than some people know. I'm not a researcher per se. I'm not a doctor per se, but I listen to the best people in the world. Like I don't go to some schmo to learn how to do bodybuilding. I go to Hani Rambod, who's produced, multiple Olympia champions. I go to the best of the best of the best. I sometimes go to the guy that teaches the best people how to teach other people how to be the best. And I've done that since the time I was a kid. My first boxing coach, or my second boxing coach rather, was Kevin Rooney. You guys know who Kevin Rooney trained? He trained Mike Tyson. That's right, he trained Mike Tyson. I've done that since forever. Every time I try to move into something new, I always go to the top. I always go to the best. I always go to the top of the food chain. So I'm like, I want to hear it directly. So I'm not getting information about fasting mimicking from some guy who bought the fasting mimicking kit. I'm getting information from Walter Longo. But if you have an autoimmune disorder, if you are having a lot of restless sleep, if you have some sort of skin disorder, you have just a problem, the laundry list of things that fasting can assist with is very, very long and very, very encouraging. Fasting can help fight off cancer. Fasting can help with heart disease, insulin resistance, diabetes, multiple sclerosis. When I was looking at some of these things, I was like, holy shit, like this can really help with so many things. And I know from my studies of the human body over the years that everything that you need is already within you. It's already inside you. You have to charm it out of yourself. And the only way to be charming enough to get it out of yourself is to treat yourself the right way. And in this case, it's a little counterintuitive because you simply leave the body alone. Let me not fill up my stomach all day, every day with food and junk. That's what we feed it all the time. I mean, think about it. It's a detoxification away from how long have you been abusing your body? How long have you been abusing your body? 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years? Now you have an opportunity to fast for a few days here. Even fasting one day will be super beneficial, but a 5-day fast really has been showing some really outstanding results. It only makes sense that you're detoxifying yourself. You're getting rid of all that junk in your body. There's an interesting thing. There's a group of people, a race from Ecuador. They don't get cancer. They're immune to cancer. They are not very tall people because they don't produce IGF-1. But because they don't produce IGF-1, they don't get cancer. And so when you fast, like a huge portion of this fast, even though I was eating some food, I ate very little to hardly any protein. And I know I often promote protein, but protein signals the body to produce more IGF-1, which can be great for muscle building. But it also seems like there's some linkage there between IGF-1 production, or the presence of IGF-1, and cancer. There's still a lot more research that needs to be done. But maybe you can offset these things by occasionally doing a fast. It starts to make a lot of sense to me. And so I chose to do the fast for more health purposes and reasons of resetting my sleep. On day one, I was only woken up twice in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. Day 2 was the same thing. Day 3, only woken up once. Day 4, woken up twice. And last night was a little restless because I was so excited about waking up in the morning and eating. So it wasn't a great night of sleep, but I woke up about 3 times, which is way better than me, according to my sleep study, being woken up 8 times. I also stopped breathing for 10 seconds or more 154 times, which by the standards of testing for sleep apnea was considered to be mild, just because America is, unfortunately, so unhealthy. If you're experiencing fatigue during the day, you're really wiped out during the day, you're really tired, you're really exhausted, get an at-home sleep study done. They are not expensive. They can sometimes be written as a script for you. And all I did, and I'll show you this at some point when I get another one done, they clip a thing onto your finger and you put a thing on your chest. They clip a thing on your finger, or you clip a thing on your own finger. You do it yourself at home, the at-home sleep study. Clip a thing on your finger. It's a pulse oximeter. You stick a little thing on your chest. The thing turns on automatically. It records your sleep for the night. Tells you how long you slept on your back, your side, all of that stuff. Tells you, how much you were snoring, how loud you were snoring, all those things. For me, it appears that most of my snoring doesn't even really exist anymore, but I still am not waking up refreshed and things like that until I did this fast, and it seems to have reset everything. During this 5-day fast, I was on a podcast yesterday with Nsima and Andrew, and Nsima stopped for a second. He kind of looked at me and he was like, I don't get it, man. You're at the end here of a 5-day fast. And he's like, I barely even noticed that you've been fasting like that. Yeah, I have built up a stronger mentality over a period of time, so it's easier for me to deal with things that are tougher than I used to be able to deal with them. But in addition to that, fasting has been helping my sleep right off the bat from day one. So what does Mark Smelly Bell look like with some rest? You're gonna see the beginning of it. So while y'all might think that I'm fading out and I'm heading that way, I'm just getting started, and I'm excited. And I can't wait to share more information with you guys about what this diet has done for me. I also want to point out that through the process of fasting, you're also producing ketones. You're in a ketogenic state. So it's going to be anti-catabolic in a lot of ways. Are you going to lose muscle on a 5-day fast? What do you think? Of course you will. There's always going to be some give and take. Are you going to lose muscle on a cutting program getting ready for a bodybuilding show and doing 90 minutes cardio every day? Probably. Yeah, you probably will. Are there ways of cutting and getting lean without losing any muscle? Maybe. But the pros, even the pro bodybuilders, they'll tell you they feel like they look a little bit better a few weeks out or a few weeks later, right? And a lot of that has to do with the muscle bellies being a little bit fuller. They have a little bit more muscle on them. They got a little bit more junk in the trunk. And it is probably because they do lose muscle mass going into the show. So don't be scared. There's always give and take to all these things that we do. There's always going to be give and take to these things that we mess around with. But if we don't mess around with them, what are we going to learn about ourselves? I learned a lot about myself in utilizing intermittent fasting in general, and then in the process of doing this 5-day fast. One of the things that really showed me and exposed to me is that I most likely need to move my dinner way more forward to the beginning, more the beginning part of the day. I need to eat between 4 and 5:30 or so every day, and then have that to be the last of my calories. But as I got thinking about it more, I'm like, how can I apply some of what I just learned about fasting mimicking to my nutrition at night? Because maybe I could have my last meal at 4 or 5, but maybe I have an opportunity to still eat something that still kind of represents fasting, but is just super low calorie. So that's where I might have some really low calorie Jell-O. I think it's only got 10 calories in it. I might be able to have a couple of olives. I might be able to have, I think an olive has 10 calories in it or something like that, depending on the size of the olive, obviously. Pickles, I think you can eat 10 pickles. It's got 5 calories. Not the yummiest thing in the world, right? But sometimes you have to do things that maybe are unconventional just to figure out a way to stay in the game, right? I could eat a couple cucumbers, throw some salt on them, maybe dip them in some hummus or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of options if you really start to think about it. But the main thing is not to give myself a big old gut bomb and not to fill myself up a ton right before I go to bed, which is what I usually do, because that helps me keep the demons away and it helps me shift away from eating junk food, but then it's also taken away from my sleep. So I'm going to have to reevaluate how much I like sleep, and how much do you love not sleeping, Mark Smelly Bell? Let's see. Do you love not sleeping so much that you're still going to have the same bad habits you did before? I bet that I will, but maybe it will only be on occasion. That's what we're working towards. We're always working towards just being a little bit better. Because if we work towards being better, I want you guys to always understand it's for what it can make of you. So if you make $50,000 a year right now, I would like for you to set a goal for yourself to where you make $100,000, $150,000. Put that goal out there a little bit. Put it pretty high and start to think about what would I have to become in order to be worth $150,000. I set out from the time I was very young. I always wanted to be rich. I always wanted to be wealthy. It was something that fascinated my brain tremendously. I didn't know until I was older. I always just thought it'd be convenient and it'd be nice to have some cool things. But I didn't realize till I was older what an awesome opportunity it would be to shoot for that goal because of what it could make of me. And that's what I want you guys to learn is, what could this process of going through a 5-day fast, what can it make of you? In just a few days, I'm going to write out a 3-day program that you guys can follow along. It'll be available on markbell.com. I'll post it on the internet for free as well. It will be on it'll be right here on this YouTube channel. I'll explain the whole entire thing with you. We'll give you a chart so you can follow the whole thing. 5 days is aggressive, and if you guys do want to follow along with that, just follow along with the advice that Walter Longo has out there. Do a little research on him on YouTube, but I'll put out a Mark Smelly Bell, modified fast for you guys that you can check out, and I'll do it with my buddy Joel Green to make sure that we have all the sciencey stuff locked in there, and so we're not missing anything. But you guys will be able to experience a lot of the same things that I went through. I'll get you that very shortly. We'll put something up in a week or so. Make sure you guys are well equipped with the information that you need. In the comments below, I want to know what your experiences have been with some fasting. And I want to finish off by telling you the importance of a time-restricted feeding window. And so if you want to try a fast, I would recommend that you try like a 14-hour fast first, maybe work your way into a couple days later, maybe an 18-hour fast, and then eventually a full day of fasting. There's not a ton of things that you need to follow or worry about in a 1-day fast. You're going to totally survive. Most of us have a good 60 days of body fat wrapped around us to be able to insulate us and inoculate us against like a fast for many days. But a 1-day fast is simple enough to follow along with. Yeah, let me know about your experiences with fasting, what it's done for you, how it's helped you. A time-restricted window, I think, is important for anyone that wishes to keep some of their bad habits in the mix and in the fold. Fasting is a great opportunity for you to do that, because now you're partitioning your calories to be at a different part of the day, and you're going through kind of a fat burning, calorie burning process. Now, you may not burn more fat and more calories, because it still might come down to the overall amount of energy that you take in. That may be something to consider and pay attention to as well. But if you just eat less, you have less opportunities to mess up in the day. Because let's face it, your previous history of you eating demonstrates that you don't make good choices all the time. So if you have 5 choices to make in a given day and you normally make bad choices on 4 out of the 5, what if we only have 2 choices to make for the day? What if we only have 2 meals? Through this process for me, I also learned, and I learned this kind of long ago, but through some intermittent fasting, just learned that snacks don't really have a place. I don't really think we should be really eating snacks. They can have a place. They can be part of a healthy diet, but for most of us, they're a slippery slope and they lead to a lot of problems. Lastly, I need to finish with this because I heard some people talking some shit. I should not have gotten on social media. I don't know what got into my brain, but maybe the extra rest made me think that it was a good idea, and maybe it's fucking me up more than it's helping me. But I saw some comments out there about, somebody wrote, man, this really pisses me off. Somebody wrote that they're like, carbohydrates, somebody wrote carbohydrates cause obesity. And then somebody else wrote, this is the dumbest post I've ever seen. And they went back and forth, right? And there was some back and forth and back and forth. I want to reiterate and I want to repeat, carbohydrates do not make us fat. Nothing can make you any sort of way. You have agency, you have control, you're an adult. You know, guns don't kill people, people kill people, right? The carbohydrates aren't harmful when they're sitting there by themselves. However, how much obesity did we have in this world when there was no processed carbohydrates created by man? How much obesity do we have? Fucking zero. We had none. We used to have none. So do carbohydrates cause obesity? They don't help. They certainly don't help. If we're getting them through honey, which is natural, natty, right? If we're getting them through fruit, if we're getting them through vegetables, they help a lot. But otherwise, we're getting them through processed foods, which doesn't help at all, right? When someone says carbs make you fat, I understand what they're saying. When someone also says carbs don't make you fat, I get the idea of what they're saying. But it's really hard for us to control ourselves with that much yummy stuff around us and that much convenient, delicious foods around us. People are growing up with these things, they're growing up with these amazing foods, they're growing up with ice cream and Cheez-Its and all these different things in their lives from the time they're young, animal crackers, processed food, processed carbohydrates. And so that's what we're talking about when we start to think about carbohydrates could potentially make you fat. And it's a mixing of ingredients that can make us fat, because even the entry into just thinking about eating those foods, once we decide to eat them, it's very, very hard to control for calories. So keep that in mind and figure out what you need to do to safeguard yourself away from those things. You may be a person that can enjoy a small, reasonable amount of ice cream. There are people that exist like that. It's probably 50-50. There's probably 50% of the population that can figure it out and they can control themselves and have a scoop or two. And then 50% of the population is probably like me, where they just want to eat the whole damn thing. My wife seems to be that kind of person. She can pick at stuff and have a little bit of stuff, and she somehow maintains great control and has a great figure to show for it. I would be 330 pounds, which you guys seen me be that before. And I know some of you are cheering for Fat Mark to come back, but I hope to God he never does. But he's still inside here, and that's why I still have a fat guy mentality. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never a strength. Catch you guys later.